So good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Really do appreciate it. And we are just excited to have a very engaging conversation. I am Rudy Jambar. I am the Associate Dean of the Criminal Justice Program here at Broward College, which is a part of the Institute of Public Safety Pathway. And so we are collaborating with Broward College Student Life. So I have to give a big shout out to Lauren Adamo, who is the Student Life Director at Central Campus. And so we have collaborated to present a Woman in a Leadership series. The birth of this is really because, I've noticed that women are outpacing their male counterparts when it comes to degree ascertainment, but there is still a gap of disparity when it comes to positions of leadership and women being represented in that, right? And I just think it's high time that there be even more women leaders to create more balance that we need, right? And to have really engender a true spirit of collaboration in the workplace and the academic place, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is the kickoff event of our Women in Leadership series. We do have three more later on this month. And so what I'll probably do is talk a little bit about that at the end of today's program. And so without further ado, I want to introduce our panel for today. First individual that I would like to introduce is Professor Angel Kleiman. Angel Kleiman is director of the Rosemary Duffy Larson Gallery at Broward College, where she has also been teaching visual arts classes for more than a decade. She received her BFA from the University of Florida's New World School of the Arts and her MFA from Florida International University, where she studied painting and sculpture. A nationally exhibiting artist herself, Angel has worked with artists from all over the world, curating and hosting dozens of exhibitions at the RDL Gallery, as well as during local exhibitions for organizations such as the Broward and Boca Raton Art Guilds, and serving on the Cultural Tourism Program panel for the Broward County Cultural Division. So Angel's representing, and that's the other thing I want to mention, this was also a collaboration with the academic pathways. So Angel's representing the AHCD pathway, specifically the arts department. And so I want to thank Associate Dean Wincier for her collaboration in this event. Next up is Professor Rodica Charles. With over 25 years in different roles in the business space, Rodica currently oversees the operations team for one of the largest employee benefits agencies of World Insurance Associates, the second fastest growing insurance broker in the United States. The operations team, comprised mainly of women, is culturally diverse. Prior to her current role, she ran the organization's wellness program, which was a complex project that involved designing and bringing to fruition corporate wellness programs for approximately 20,000 people. With a background in human resources, combined with a strong business acumen and a great understanding of different cultures, the goal of the programs was to provide employees with the necessary support to start or continue their journey to achieve optimum health, while helping employers achieve a better bottom line and transform them into employers of choice. In addition to her professional accomplishments, Ms. Charles is proud of her personal accomplishments as well. She is a member of several organizations. Her mantra, doing whatever it takes, has helped her to stay humble, curious, and it has opened an array of opportunities along the way. She also teaches at Broward College. She's representing the business pathway, and I want to thank Associate Dean Fernandez for his help in bringing us Professor Charles. Major Jenny McCook in 1997. It was Major McCook embarked on a career in law enforcement in the field of corrections. She applied with the Broward Sheriff's Office and was hired as a corrections cadet in the 130th Corrections Academy at Broward College Institute of Public Safety. Whoop, whoop. Major McCook completed the academy in December of 1997. During her tenure with the Department of Detention, she has had several advancements, promoted to sergeant in January of 2005, lieutenant in August of 2016, appointed as the executive officer in the Central Intake Bureau in November of 2016, promoted to captain of the Main Jail Bureau in May 2021, and most recently promoted to major overseeing mental health for the DOD in October of 2021. In 2014, Major McCook earned a bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary studies with a concentration in health science, graduating summa cum laude and was a salutatorian at Kaiser University. She is also an auditor with the Florida Corrections Accreditation Commission. Major McCook has completed the National Jail Leaders Corrections Academy at Sam Houston College in Texas and the Southern Police Institute's Command Officers Development course. She completed the National Institute of Jail Operations Elite Academy. Major McCook is also a member of the American Jail Association. Major McCook has had the privilege of working at the Main Jail Bureau, Central Intake Bureau, Paul Rain Facility, and North Broward Bureau. She is a proud and dedicated member of the Broward Sheriff's Office. She, of course, represents the pathway that I oversee, or the department I oversee, which is criminal justice, part of the Institute of Public Safety. Felicidad Archila, wonderful, beautiful name. Professor Archila has been an educator for over 20 years. She started her journey as a Peace Corps volunteer and has been a full-time Broward College information technology professor for 15 years, specializing in data management and data analytics. In addition to her teaching position, she is a program manager for the Computer Information Technology AS and the BAS in technology management. Professor Archila is also a faculty coach and has served as a faculty advisor for several NSF grants focused on increasing the enrollment of underrepresented minorities in IT. She serves as a change leader with the National Center for Women in IT, whose mission is to increase the meaningful participation of women in IT and participates in local and national mentorship programs. Professor Archila is a hands-on instructor who focuses on creating a positive, inclusive environment in which all students are given the opportunity to succeed. So she represents the STEM pathway, in particular the IT department, and I want to thank Associate Dean Myers for helping me to get Professor Archila to be a part of this panel. And last but certainly not least, my dear friend, Rhonda Bobb. Dr. Rhonda Bobb has over 20 years of service at Broward College, where she most recently served as Associate Professor of English for academic purposes and student life skills on South Campus. As of this week, she started a new position as the new interim, congratulations, Associate Dean of Online Liberal Arts. She began her teaching career at BC in the workforce and continuing education, teaching accent reduction 1 and 2 to non-native English speakers. With many years in ESOL teaching training, she started her career as an interaction leader with the University of Florida's English Language Institute. Dr. Bobb was concurrently awarded the 2014, 15, and 2015, 2016 South Campus Adjunct Professor of the Year and the 2019, 2020 South Campus Professor of the Year. Additionally, she was accepted into the 2020 cohort of the President's Leadership Academy and served as a 2020 to 2022 faculty senator. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Linguistics with a minor in teaching English as a second or foreign language from the University of Florida, and a Master of Science in teaching English to speakers of other languages, and a Doctor of Education in Higher Education Leadership from Nova Southeastern University. So as you can see, we have a tremendous panel. I am going to get out of the way now, and Dr. Bobb, I turn it all to you.
Thank you, Rudy, for those fabulous introductions. And ladies, it's a pleasure to have met you and finally put a face to a name. So let's get started. What I'm going to do is put the question in the chat room so those that are also here watching, stating, can see the questions, because they are kind of layered, and at times for the room you may forget. So I have it in here. And so I want to start with the first question. So simply ask a question and we have a candid conversation. So let's begin. What are the ingredients to good leadership in your respective fields? So Major McCook, I would love to hear about that. What are ingredients for good leadership in your field in law enforcement?
Good morning, everyone. So what I believe the ingredients for a good leadership is, what I've taken is focus, humility, and introspect. I think those three things stand out to me the most, and it helps you focus. means that you're dedicated, you're concentrating on what the goal and task is. Humility, always understand you're not always right. And introspect, being able to look within yourself to determine what else could you do that's better, and always evaluating who you are as a person and as a leader.
I like that. Very good. Professor Charles.
Well, I think, and it goes in line with that, with what she said earlier. Transparency is very important. As a leader, you have to not only promote, fairness and really be the one who leads the herd, but also have to be transparent. And typically speaking, what happens in business, you can't always acknowledge your wins. You have to acknowledge your fails, because those are basically lessons that will help you move forward. Active listening, which we all know, and unfortunately we live in a society where that's not very well practiced. We listen to respond rather than to understand. And definitely empathy. Being empathetic will always set you, whether you are a leader or a follower, will always set you on a good path.
I like that. Professor Chilla, give us some good ingredients that we can move forward in being a good leader.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm going to agree definitely with Professor Charles. For me, empathy and compassion are the #1 components, not just in being a leader, but being a good human being. You have to be able to understand your team. For me, my team is mainly my students, but sometimes I am in leadership of different colleagues, and you have to be able to understand and have a compassionate heart. And remember that people are human beings, that they are going through different struggles, that they're here to do their best, but you have to lead by example. Transparency is huge. A lot of time our egos kind of get in the way, and when things don't go right, instead of being sincere and honest and recognizing the mistakes that we've been made, we tend to kind of cover them up or blame it on somebody else. And that's definitely not a good leadership. It doesn't provoke good teamwork. It doesn't provoke trust in you. It doesn't provoke any kind of thought process that things will get better. So I'm going to say definitely transparency, #1, compassion and empathy. And remember that, we are human beings, and that is our #1 job.
Fair. Professor Kleiman, does it vary from different fields, these leadership qualities that you want to incorporate in your career?
I mean, I find that what the ladies have already said really applies also to my field as an art instructor and as a gallery director. But I found that listening, and that was already even said, but listening, I think, is so important. There have been times where those on my team that are more in the seat of a follower, they think, well, why is the leader asking for my opinion and for my thoughts, when just because your experience level is, you are newer to the field, doesn't mean that you don't have anything to share. Two heads are better than one. So I find that sometimes people are surprised when you do want to listen. And I think that's really important. And really getting to know your team members, to find, meet them where they are at. What is their life experience? What do they have to bring? There isn't a one size fits all. And I think you have to really be adaptable.
Very good, nice. Let's move on. I'm going to start with you again, Professor Kleiman. I know you're just finished, but when did you first realize you were a leader?
It really sort of snuck up on me. When I first started teaching, I feel like my soul would leave my body. It was just this really scary thing at first to be in the seat of the leader. And then I became comfortable with it. And then I thought I had that covered. And then when I became gallery director, it sort of happened again, so you're always kind of learning. I feel like I really struggled with imposter syndrome early on, like, am I capable to be in this role? Should I be in this role? But I think that really comes from, we sometimes idolize our leaders and we forget that they're also like human too. So just because you're still learning, you still can lead.
Yeah. Professor Charles, you're shaking your head. You can agree?
Yes, I do. I think that one of the greatest characteristics of being a leader is in recognizing your flaws and your fails. And, I thought this was an interesting question. I've always been, loud and very opinionated. I come from a different background. Somehow I was never able to blend in. I just don't blend in. I get like noted in a crowd. It doesn't matter. So I think it was natural, and I tend to be drawn into things that challenge me. I was just having the conversation earlier this morning because if I am in, as you all know, and I've learned I went to school here, not in my country. So I've learned a lot of the business acumen, obviously, in the my years in school. If you are the smartest one in the room, you should leave. So I always like when I can learn more, because I can talk, but I think it's important that, like I said earlier, we stop and listen, and that makes a huge difference, because your followers will definitely want to be heard, and you go from there. But yeah, it was and to Professor Kleiman's point, it was amazing. I was a nervous wreck when I first started teaching, but I just absolutely loved it. I said, look, there are like 30 mature individuals who are listening to me. I better do well. So it just motivated me to do better. And I actually have relationships with them. And, they reached out over the years and asked for recommendations, or what do you think I should do? And we still have friendships. So definitely it's very, very rewarding for sure.
So you realized within the field doing the actual work or you had some inkling prior to, because you're always the loudest one in the room, that you were a leader?
Well, I volunteered a lot. I have an interesting background. I work in the travel industry, and that kind of like put me on stage in front of the hundreds of people and kind of like telling them what to do, and they didn't have a choice but listen to me. So there's more to it, but I've definitely enjoyed being in that seat, and it has helped me grow as an individual. And obviously I have my own mentors that I look up to, and some of them are much younger than me and much wiser, and I learn every step of the way.
Nice. Major McCook,
When
when did you first realize you were a leader?
Well, it didn't necessarily start with my career, but when people sought out my contributions, when they wanted my input, what I had to say matters, and they actually followed what I told them, or what the information I provided to them. Now, my career is the same thing. When my staff and my supervisors wanted to hear from me, wanted to know what I thought, and even when they were invested in me, even when I may not be at my peak, they still valued what I had to say. So really, some people are naturally born leaders. I think that I am a natural born leader. Some people are taught. I think that leadership can be taught as well. But anytime, I've always tried to take the back, to just stand back. No, I'm pulled to the front. So.
Thank you. Professor Achilla, I'd like to know, when did you first realize you were a leader?
I'm going to echo what Major McCook said. It's like I want to be in the background. I want to do the hands-on part. I want to be the techie in the little room, and I'm constantly being pushed forward. And it's good. It's a good thing. And again, like Professor Charles said, you have mentors that see in you what you don't see in yourself, because we're always questioning: are we good enough? Do I know enough? Am I doing the best job that I can do? In IT, it's a constant learning new technologies and delivering and making sure that you're up on the perfect thing to teach your students to empower themselves. So you get so caught up in that you forget that you do have at least 24 people looking at you all the time. So little by little, you do start getting these relationships where they come to you after class, a lot older people, because usually I was one of the younger people, and they'll ask you, well, what do you think I should do? Should I do this? Should I do that? I really value you. I can't believe you're here. Like, I'm in class and someone like me looks like me is up there. Like, I can't believe that my husband said I would never be able to do that. And look at you. And I was like, okay. So now there's people looking at me. And at the same time, I'm going to give props to AD Myers. She has pushed me all the way. Every time I want to stand in the background and be quiet in a meeting, she's like, Felicita, what do you have to say? What do you have to say? What do you have to say? And she constantly puts me in a leadership role. Again, like Mitchum Cook said, at home, I am the middle kid, but I am like the leader of the family always. And I'm not sure if that's ingrained or if that's just pushed to the need. I come from a single family household, and when my mom's at work, somebody's got to manage the household. So I think without even realizing it as a kid, I was already, 12, 13, 14, but I'm making sure that things are running in the house. So even though you don't want to step up, something's always pushing you to step up.
You're
So
developing that, yes.
mhm.
I think what did it for me is when students appreciated what I did and valued what I did. And I was like, wow, I'm holding a powerful tool in enriching them with knowledge and changing their lifestyle. And that's big, that's huge. So yes, I do agree. It can be taught, it can be developed, craft, and as well as honed. People can recognize it within you and push you forward. So ladies, thank you for that and being great leaders. I have another question for you. Have you ever experienced bias in your career because of your gender? And if so, how did you feel and how did you respond? Multi-layers, I have it in the chat room so you can also look and review, but have you ever experienced bias in your career because of your gender? And if so, how did you feel and how did you respond? Major McCook.
Well, I am pleased to say that I have not experienced gender bias. I pondered on this question, tried to rack my brain, and I'm pleased to say that at my department, that has not been an issue for me.
Very good, interesting. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Professor Kleiman? And I give you a chance to.
So yes, as in the gallery director position, you have to wear a lot of hats, and some of those hats include duties that are, more expected of women, but there are duties that are a little more like masculine in nature. So for instance, we're always during installation, we're getting dirty, we're lifting heavy objects, we're building things, we're using power tools. And we have a 40-foot ceiling in our gallery. So you have to learn how to use a scissor lift if you want to adjust the lights or hang things from the ceiling, which regularly happens. And the scissor lift often needs repairs or has issues, but we need this lift, right? So when we would need repairs and I'd have to contact vendors, there were times when my male assistants were the ones being consulted on it and not me. And at first I was a little upset, but then I had to sort of introspect. And I think some of that was coming from me. I was intimidated by that lift, and I think it showed. Anytime I could delegate that duty, I would delegate that duty. And then I realized, I'm putting that gender bias on myself. Like, why can't I do this? So I made it a goal to really become familiar with that lift, get really good at it, master it. And honestly, I haven't had that issue since. So I think, you can only control what you can control. And that was a case where I was able to do something about it.
Nice. Professor Achilla, have you ever experienced bias in the career because of your gender?
Definitely, definitely. In the IT field, and again, when I started, I was kind of one of the only women in the room, and I'm still a lot of times one of the only women in the room. The only difference is that I'm in the front of the room now. So it was kind of two-sided. When I first started working as a regular tech doing my master's, I got a lot of help from my male counterparts because I'm a woman. I'm small in stature. I have a small voice, so they're like, "Oh, she's so cute. Let's help her." So it was kind of like, both ways. But then at the same time, when it came to do something serious, they're like, nobody's taking me seriously. When I started being a techie and going to help people, like, simple stuff, my printer's not working, this is not working. And I was working at Nova, and a lot of the older professors were like, oh, great, you're new. How nice to meet you. What's going on? But when is the tech coming? I'm like, no, I am the tech. Okay, but when is the real tech coming? And I'm like, I am the real tech. So that's me. So I have had that from the beginning. Of course, that was like 20 years ago. In my role now, a lot of times I do still feel that I go to curriculum committee meetings and I'm defending my programs or my changes, and there's always like a pause to see that, and one of my other colleagues will kind of interrupt and be like, yeah, what she's doing is right, and then everybody's like, oh, okay. And of course he's male, he's glasses, most of you guys know him, Professor Ferris. And I was like, why do I always need him to kind of like, to make sure that people understand that I'm doing the right thing? So it definitely happens, and it happens all the time. How do I deal with it? Like Professor Kleiman says, you have to be uber prepared. Like, you have to know 150% of everything, more than anybody else does. I am excessively organized and detailed, and it's like anytime a question comes up, I always know what's going to happen, what's the answer, what, cross T's, cross I's. So when the questions come up and everybody's looking at my male counterparts, I usually know I'm the one that I read the manual. I'm that kind of techie, so I know what's going on. And kind of just take it a little bit, light. You get upset, and I still get upset 20 years later. I'm still getting upset, but then you kind of have to take yourself a little bit lighter and just, it is what it is. All I can do is be here and be a good role model, but I can't change the whole entire world. I try every day, but it's definitely a work in progress.
Professor Charo.
I think it wasn't really, I did encounter something, but it wasn't really in trend with a gender bias. It just so happens that at the time, the particular department that I was looking at was mostly interested, or mostly into male. So typically speaking, at least in the industries that I have been working, the finance department is mostly males and the accounting department is mostly females. Having had a financial degree, I really wanted to get into a particular role, and they preferred this male individual at the time. So obviously that got me very upset, and then so on and so forth. But I realized that fighting it at the time was not necessarily going to benefit me. So I chose to, kind of like focus my efforts into a different direction. So I forwarded my education, ended up in other places, remained very friendly with the individual that eventually was chosen for that, a male individual that was chosen for that. And years later, we talked about it, and he was in the same position. And he said, it was a good thing you never took that, because look, I'm still in the same position 7 years later, not marketable, and look where you are and the things that you're doing. So they kind of, ignorance doesn't sort a lot of issues, but if you look at it in a constructive way, as in, I'm not ignoring it because I'm not educated enough to understand the situation. I let it go for my benefit because it doesn't evolve me. My mentor says, if it doesn't involve you, it doesn't evolve you. And it goes both ways.
Like that, yeah.
So it didn't really evolve me in any way. So I got out of it, got rid of the involvement, and worked on myself. So not really a gender bias. It was, like I said, more of a preference for a, particular type of individual for, to join the team. But,
Right.
still more male in finance than females. So I like to break that ceiling.
Barrier. I like that. And I think representation matters. So to have you guys here saying that we can make a mark in that our particular career is necessary and important. So question number 4, how important is mentorship when it comes to developing leadership capabilities? Who has served as a mentor? And many of you have mentioned it, so I'd love to hear about it. Who has served as mentors to you that has had an impact in your career? And we'll go around the room. Professor Kleiman, I'm bothering you again. Who is your mentor? And how important is it in your field?
So important. I mean, I've had so many people that I've looked to as mentors, and that's really what's kept me going when things were tough. But one mentor that had a huge impact on me is another professor here at Broward College. When I first started out, I was very young. I was fresh out of college, and I just felt like I was out of the frying pan into the fire. And one particular professor, Professor Catherine Lysick, who's one of our senior professors, she really like took me under her wing. And I was so inspired by her. I still am so inspired by her. She was the first female full-time faculty in our department, and in sculpture, which is like traditionally like a male-dominated medium within art. And she allowed me to like observe her classes, and she really shared with me. And one thing that always really struck me is, oh, she seems so in charge, so under control, so she's so at ease. And that was the thing that was like, oh, I came in like scared, you know. And she revealed to me that after all these years, she gets nervous before the first day of school. And that really like hit me. I know we still do, right? And that I always remember that someone that is so sure of themselves and is so capable, she feels that way too. She's also human, and she was able to be vulnerable with me and express that to me, because I feel like sometimes we want to show that we are good at what we do, and sometimes we don't show that vulnerable side. And so I always remember that, and it really made a big difference.
Nice, very good. Professor Achilla, I'm sorry.
Okay. Before I talk about another professor, because I was in the exact same boat as Professor Kleiman. I was fresh out of my master's degree. I think I graduated in August, and I was teaching in August. So, but before that, I want to say definitely my mom. Like my mom has been a rock. You know, so you see a single woman, an immigrant, first time here with 3 kids, and she's making it happen. And that was always what I was looking at. And she pushed me a lot. And then when I got here, it was Professor Levine, and I was actually looking up her title because she's not Professor Levine anymore. She moved way up. Now she's district director of something. She's big. And when I first started here, she was the one that helped me. And it was another woman. She had been teaching already. She had been teaching in high school, and she had a degree in education where I had a degree in tech. So she taught me how to teach, and also taught me how to be vulnerable in front of my students. And she's like, you don't have to know it all. When you don't know something, you stop and you say, I don't know, let's look it up together. And she gave me that space to be like, oh, okay. And then now definitely AD Myers. AD Myers is a rock. She is my other rock, like my other mom, and she's awesome. So mentoring is huge. I've been on the college for 17 years. For the first 10, I had a male supervisor, and that was okay. That's all I can say. And then once AD Myers was my boss, it was like the world opened up. It's like rainbows, unicorns, like the gold pot at the end. I mean, it was amazing to have that mentor, to have that woman be there and encourage you and believe in you. It's huge.
Yeah. Major McCook, please tell us, how important is mentorship, especially in your field where you're learning and growing, and every day is something new. And so it's great to have someone who can give some perspective to that. So how is it important, and how, when it comes to developing your leadership capabilities, and who served as a mentor that impacted your career?
I believe that mentorship ranks very high in developing leadership capabilities, especially now where our the young ones that's coming up, they require that special attention. They require that guidance. Mentorship can come in the form of someone that looks like you, and you relate to that person, and you become that role model to that person that kind of will show the person which way to go, which direction to go. I believe that I have taken bits and pieces from many different leaders in my field. Not one person per se, but I took the good out of everyone. And then the parts that I didn't think helped or was something I don't want to follow, I kind of just didn't follow that, but I just took bits and pieces, and that's what's helped me to be a good leader. So once I see somebody that, or something that they're doing, that's helped me, I try to emulate it. I try to make it my own. Not only, maybe I'm not emulating, maybe I'm gonna take it and make it my own, make it something that I can use for me. But I do believe that mentorship, if done the right way, and it has to be a chemistry. You and that person, it has to be some sort of chemistry, something relatable to why that person has chosen you as a mentor, and then you would have to be able to want to be able to be that mentor to that mentoree.
Yeah, yeah. Professor Charles?
Everything these ladies are saying is just so true. I do have a couple of things. So definitely Professor Chila, I went through the same motion. I literally graduated with my MBA in HR. I loved doing HR for a while. But then I was reminded the hard way that Florida is an employer state, not an employee state. In any case, that's a conversation for another time. So definitely I was nervous, but I also think that teaching business classes gives us an array of possibilities to mentor and coach people into doing it the right way. It is important to understand for both the mentor and the mentoree that the mentor is not to design your pathway. The mentor is only designed to help you identify what, not necessarily what you're good at, but what you want to do and put you on the right path. The one thing, well, out of the many things that I have a particular individual that I look up to, and I just absolutely love how she not really overly simplifies, but really gives you the really core of the, you know, to get a good understanding of what it is. She puts it very simple. She says, if you remove all of the emotions around an issue, any issue for that matter, because if you think about it, it's inflated by the way you feel, you think, you assume. If you remove and leave just the bare thing, you are able to be more objective, have a, you know, be able to take a different or just a more accurate, make a decision, like look at it as a whole instead of take it from someone else with how they feel about it and think and, you know, about it. So funny enough, in business classes, and I taught entrepreneurship, I taught diversity, I taught management basic and so forth. We look at different cases, and I like to ask people because they tend to retain more of their personal experiences or anything that kind of like made an impact in their lives. So we go through all sorts of scenarios, the what ifs, and there is a lot of feedback when it comes down to that. And even at work, I go through the same thing where I have some of my employees come in with an issue and say, listen, let's sit down. How about if you just start from the beginning? It's not about how you feel. What is the bare, So you're able to gear them into a different direction from there and look at things from a different perspective. And, it may be someone else's fault, but then if you are the empathetic person, and everything takes different turns. I don't know.
Yeah.
Different turn.
I've had mentors, yes, professors throughout Broward College that have been instrumental in who I am, as well as I've had students that I've formed. There goes my light. I don't move a lot. I've had students that I have mentored, and one in particular is in the room somewhere. And was her mentor, and she was my mentee, but she also taught me, which is so funny. And I learned from her. And what I loved about that relationship, still love about our relationship, is that not only she said she wanted to be like me, but I told her to be better than me. And she has done that and exceeded my expectation I could have possibly ever had for her. And so, yes, it's very significant to have a mentorship when it comes to developing leadership capabilities. And most definitely, not only have my mentors inspired me, but also my mentee, which leads me to question number 5. Do you feel that colleges and universities do an effective job in developing leadership skills? And if no, then what could they do to do a better way of developing these skills within our students? And so there's a lot of layers. It's a big question. I did put it in the chat. Professor Achilla, I would like to know, how do you feel about that? Do you feel that college and universities do an effective job with regards to developing leadership skills? And what could they do more?
That's a difficult question because I know that in the last maybe 5, 6, 7 years, Broward has been doing a lot. There's a lot of emails back and forth, a lot of seminars, a lot of webinars, a lot of things. The thing is to plug our students into that, it's a little bit difficult. Our student population, as I'm sure all of you guys know, is probably 70% commuters, grown-ups, so they're there to take classes to better their skills, get jobs, get better money. So for them to plug into extra things, it's difficult. At least in my field, it is. Can we do better? We can always do better. There's always room for improvement. How? It somehow has to be a way where it's feasible for students with their whole course load, with their family, with their full-time jobs, with all the responsibilities that they're having, without even talking about the pandemic. There's so much going on where students are just struggling to do their assignments and find a job or keep their job and keep their kids at home. However, in the classroom, that I think is the most effective. Now that's putting it back on us faculty, but in reality, that is who has the most contact and the most direct contact with the students, and you have to lead by example. So I think maybe the first thing would be more professional development, but then again, that goes back into when do we have time for professional development? I have so much things to do that if I have to take one more course, it's like, I don't even know when. But that is who is going to have the most impact in our students. We are the change leaders in front of our students. We are who they have the most confidence. They should have the most confidence in us, and they can see who we are. And like you said, someone that looks like me, or if you see someone that looks like you in front of you and they did it, then I can do it too. And you have to have that compassion and that love for not just your profession, but for your students. And I'm going to echo what you said, Dr. Bob, like the number one is learning from them, learning from them. And I learned that back when I was in the Peace Corps. Like, you feel like you're going to go out there and, teach them a whole bunch of stuff. No, they're definitely teaching you 1,000 more things that you can teach, So it's kind of like, it's not a clear cut answer. I think it has to be kind of both. We have to realize that our students are adults, most of them. They don't have time to come to the, with clubs and on Fridays and this. So in the classroom, I think we have to plug in that leadership, I don't want to say talk, blah, 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 but those little points, I make it a point to have project-based assignments. I make it a point to do groups. And in my groups, a lot of times I force women to be leaders. I know they don't want to be, but I'm like, your turn, because it'll be so much easier to let, the bigger voice, which a lot of times is male, but not always, in the group take over. So you have to have that encouragement, that love, and that space for them to not do well, and then encourage them again. Like, you fail, it's okay. You failed
Right.
just one little battle, but not the whole war. Keep on, and I'm here for you.
So Major McCook, how does that play in law enforcement in terms of colleges and universities? Do you think they do an effective job in developing leadership as you deal with those that may graduate out of certain programs? And if no, what could they do? What can institutions do? We can't hear you. That's okay.
Okay, there we go. Sorry. I don't believe that college and universities do an effective job in developing leaders. I believe that they're more disciplined and they're more structured environments. When leadership is required or present, you may find that yourself in spaces that require practical application, experience, and or situation awareness. So therefore, these institutions can better harness or include development of leadership skills and include a residency support. That's what I believe, a residency support in chosen career fields. And I know normally, like the medical field, they have residencies or internships, but even in art, even in some of the other fields that may not require any technical, but they can provide the practical portion of it. Alongside a structured education, it would, I think, would be benefit the student. It would provide value to the institutional process and develop more well-rounded candidates. coming out of the formal education.
Thank you. Good point. Because you get to see the after end. We have them in the classroom. We think we're doing a fabulous job. I want to think that we do. And we do recognize, and I love how Professor Attila, you incorporated and infused it in your curriculum. Very important. Professor Charles, tell me, do you feel like college and universities are doing an effective job?
Well, I'm probably going to be a little biased here because I do train my students. Again, it's a business. All of the classes that I've taught are business. So, you know, I want to train the leaders of today and of tomorrow, and I also want to learn from them. So what I tell them, and, you know, sometimes like a Professor Archila mentioned earlier, we have the majority of students, 70–80% of them are commuters. They are the sandwich generation. They don't have the time to do anything, but we also have students that are freshly out of school. So you have to appeal to both of them. So again, I'm going to oversimplifying it. And then I go by, tell me about one time in your life when you had to make a decision. And, you know, I think leadership, whether born, taught, what have you, you know, it's just taking, you put it in simple terms and taking the lead in a particular you know, situation. And it has to do from, you know, listening to being empathetic to thinking strategic, depending on what level you are. I did have some of the some officers in my classes. I mean, obviously, now that you don't have in art or in IT, those are I think a lot of the courses are mandated. But I was privileged enough to have quite a few officers that are working on, you know, bettering themselves and getting education and so forth. So I did challenge them to bring forth, you know, when they had some struggle with just leading into a particular situation. But do I think I think colleges try to do, but it all depends on, you know, what the major, what the field of study is for each one of them. I just got a nursing degree, and they do have a nurse leadership program. And I will tell you that everybody hated it because they said, we're never going to be in that position. Having had a background in business, I said, yes, you will, because even when you decide, so I think it's left up to us to really get to the level of our students, to really understand that everything they do in their life is a decision. You know, building a family is a decision, balancing a checkbook is a decision, and big or small, you are the leader of your household. Then later you are a leader in a different environment and so forth. So, you know, start small, but eventually you're going to get into that mindset. So I think we sometimes simplify the role of leadership, or we say, oh, I don't have time for that. It's not for me. It's just for the people that have a title. It is for everyone. You don't have to label it, really. You're doing that every day of every single step of the way, you know.
Professor Klein, I agree, Professor Charles, yes. Professor Kleiman, in your particular area, do you feel colleges and universities are doing enough to expose students in developing their leadership skills?
I think that, you know, at least in the visual arts, the most important thing that you can do when you're starting out to move towards being a leader is to get involved. I know there are really only so many hours in the day, but in the arts, it's not just the actual job. You spend so much of when you're in the arts, it like takes over your whole life. and so it's just really important to make it a part of your life. So we have 2 art galleries. We have one on Central and one on South. And we have art openings, which are places where you can get to meet other artists and make connections, and volunteer and really learn. And we do have even paid positions as well as gallery assistants as a way to move into that part of the art world. We have Panku, which is our literary and arts magazine. And not only to get involved and have your work in there, but they're always looking for team members. And then within there is leadership. Like and I've had a lot of students that just come in and they start doing a little stuff, and then they end up as editor. And so we have opportunities to be studio assistants, but it all starts with showing up, getting involved, asking questions. And so that's something that I do really try to encourage my students, that you don't necessarily start as a leader, you start as part of that team, and you start small, and before you know it, maybe you're in that leadership position.
Yeah. Thank you, ladies. Our final question, and I think this is the most significant question I'm going to ask everyone. I'm going to start with Professor Archila. Tell me, why is it important to have more women leaders in your perspective field, and in fields, period? Why is it significant and important to you to have more women leaders?
So that's a huge question, because that goes back into why is diversity important? And we've been talking about that. Hopefully we've been talking about that for a long time. At least I've been talking about that since like 2015. I've done a lot of trainings like Professor Charles. I've done trainings for my department for STEM, and diversity is the key. Like not just for Broward College, where our student body is 100% diverse. Like the faculty and staff should represent the student body. So diversity, I think we all are now aware of what are all the positives of having a diverse team and a diverse be a department or being a group or whichever, what you wouldn't call it. Now, having a women leader, and I don't like stereotyping what women are or who women are or what are supposed to be attributes, like, we're compassionate, we're kind, again, part of getting away from that bias and that we've always been kind of hammered with. It's important to have someone that looks like you in front of you to show you that everything is possible. There's already a lot of people, a lot of men, like Professor Charles said, showing other men that things are possible. So now it's important to have women, be it non-binary, being people in front of you to show you that what you want to do is possible and to encourage you and to believe in you. One of the first things that you learn as a change leader in National Women for IT is once there's more men in the room talking about what we're talking about, that's when we made it. If it's always women talking about how women need more things, then we're still always struggling. But we need men to realize, our partners, our counterparts, to be like, hey, we need more women, we need more diversity, women, not more non-binary, more everything. Because again, it's always in the shoulders of the people that are trying to represent the change, where it needs to be in the shoulders of the whole entire organization. It needs to be systematic. So 100% it's important, and it's important for so many reasons. But the most important reason is you need to show your students or whoever is in front of you, whatever our fields are, that what they want to accomplish is possible, regardless of your gender, your ethnicity, your race, any other labels that society has placed on us. And hopefully someday those labels will go away. Again, maybe a little idealistic on my part, but we can do our part.
Professor Kleiman, in the world of arts, why is it important to have more women leaders?
I mean, I definitely echo what Professor Archila just said. It's so true. Really, the leaders should reflect the team. And I mean, we have all sorts of people. So there should be women leaders, but also from just across in the great rainbow of humanity, to just let you know that it is possible. My daughter is in first grade and wants to be an astronaut. And in her class for Black History Month, she had to pick an African-American person to do a report about, and she picked Mae Jemison, who was the first African-American woman in space. And this inspired my daughter so much. She wants to be the first woman on Mars, but also she has a neurological eye condition. So she's like, maybe I'll be the first person with nystagmus in space. So just, we can be inspired by people, even if they do come from different backgrounds. So the more we see this this great diversity in leaders, no matter where you're from. I think that really helps to just see that it really is possible.
Major McCook, law enforcement. Why is it important to have more women leaders?
Well, like Professor Achila said, and Professor Kleiman also said that it should reflect who your team are. And if your team is a majority, which is what Rudy said earlier, that how women are outpacing men in the workforce, then yes, women leaders should be a part of the team. In my field, I have my colonel is a female. She's a female. A lieutenant colonel is a female. I'm a major, and we have 3 captains out of the 6. So it's split in half. So on the top, our command, there are women leader that reflects our women staff, our team members that work for us. So women, I believe that there should be a balance. We need the other perspective. We need the male perspective. We need the female perspective. We need all perspective, like Professor Achila says, in order to understand what our team needs and what they want. Women are, but as far as specifically women are by nature creators. They're nurturers. They offer a perspective that is important. Women in the field can also offer more diversity to roles slated for strength and courage. Another form of not just brute strength, not just, and especially in my field where it tends to be physical. In order for anything to continue, it must strive for a balance and inclusion. This offers an assortment of thoughts that can be better prepared in institutions for engagement at various levels and through different times. So I believe that the fact that women offer another perspective and they bring a lot to the table.
Yeah, I agree. And Professor Charles, last question. Tell me.
So ironically, not ironically, but the first thing that came to mind when I saw the question, and it's probably because I recently watched a movie about, I'm not from here. I came here about 17 years ago. So everything about American history, I'm European. So everything about American history and everything else I've learned along the way. So I recently watched a movie about women's right to vote back in the 1920s. So, why not have women leaders everywhere? Because and I don't want to be looked upon as a nurturing and creative. I want to be looked upon as a human being, as somebody who has a brain, who can take a step forward and, a lateral. I am a hand, not because I'm weak and, I don't know how to operate a forklift or what have you. I have a good friend of mine who is a fire chief, and she's the only is actually local, right up the street from Broward. She's the fire chief in Fort Lauderdale, and there is no other fire chief. I have another very good friend who is the senior fire training. She's the director of the Association of Fire. I'm inspired by seeing them and the difference they make in the community. Not that they do any less or more, it is just different. And it is inspiring and uplifting to not see gender, to not see color, to not see sexual orientation. Anybody could be just everybody. And so, yeah, I work in the insurance industry, and you're going to see currently, and you're going to see a lot of the operations is run by women. Because why? Because they're detailed and they get things done in a more expeditious way. But the majority of the salespeople are salesmen. So my boss, who founded a company 35 years ago, she kind of like broke the ceiling. She was the first acquisition led by a woman, and she was for the annual conference. She was the only woman in a sales position in a room filled with men. I was proud, like probably more than if it was myself. But why not women?
Right.
Just
I
A
agree
little
with you.
controversy there, but
I
yeah.
think representation matters, and you're right, and all gamuts, male, female, high, low, I think everyone has something to contribute in their field. So with that being said, I am empowered by listening to your input and with regards to these questions. I want to say thank you very much for um, taking the time for us to discuss women leaders and empowering future leaders. And with that being said, I'm going to talk to some future leaders. They have some questions in the Q&A. So I'm going to ask a question and feel free to jump in, ladies. Let's look at it. It says, to whoever it may apply, do you have any advice on how to manage the double standards of excelling in our career and still being the default caregiver at home? I feel like I'm always being put in a box. So I guess it's talking about how do you balance that? Being the caregiver at home as well as pouring and excelling in your field as a leader. Does anyone want to share on that or jump in and answer that?
I can jump in on that. I have two small children. I have a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I'm very lucky because I have a lot of support. My husband does help, even though he works a lot, and my mother is there a lot. So I'm really lucky to have that support. Not everybody has as much support, but I have, whenever I can, I will take my kids along with me. I've taken them to a lot of art openings. They've been around during installations. I'm in between classes today, so they're not here with me now, but a lot of times they're on my Zoom meetings. And it can be challenging, but it also, I show them a little bit of my life and what I'm doing. And I think it is inspiring to them, to see all the aspects of what I do.
So it's
But it is
discussing.
definitely challenging.
It is a manage, right? It's a balancing
Mhm.
of the two. I have a 20-year-old. Yes, I do. And the majority of him growing up, I was a professor and very much into it in terms in higher education. So I had to rely on support. So that is significant. You have to create a community, a village, as they say. My mom says, don't say you had a village. I had a metropolitan city. I had the support. So I was able to pursue my goal and get to where I want to. Not many do have that, but that's where you come and help and assist one another. I know at Broward College, they even have a support group, mothers with children. One of our student life clubs that they have now, which I think is great. So there is a need for that, to support one another, to have someone to talk to and bounce off. But I'm curious to hear from anyone else. Feel free to jump in. How do you manage that? How do you balance the two, being a caregiver at home as well as pursuing your goals and your dreams and excelling?
It's definitely a struggle, because my daughter is 21, she'll be 22 this year. And just managing that, it's something, whoever asked that question, we all get overwhelmed. It's something, it's something that's part of life, but you find a way to persevere, because number one, you're that caregiver and you want to make sure that your child or whomever you're a caregiver for, they're good. And then you also try to stay focused and just get in there, get in the ring. I don't have a exact method on how you do it, but however it can be done. And it's up to you to know exactly what you want to do and just keep on trying. And if you have a good support system, that's even better.
Do you think it's a sacrifice? Did something have to sacrifice?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a sacrifice.
So sometimes I was not there for him, and that was a sacrifice. Or there was times when I couldn't be my full self for my students. So it is a slippery slope, but you do have to make that balance. And I love what you said, Major McCook. You can get it done. If you're focused, you can have it happen.
Yeah, when I first got promoted to sergeant, I had to go to midnights, and I was a single parent. So that was difficult because I had to have a place for my daughter to stay at night. And we were able to get through it, you know, and I don't know how we did it, but we were able to get through it.
Commend you. Very good.
I
Professor
think
Charles?
I think it is important to be very disciplined. I know it sounds a little harsh, but being just very disciplined. And for those that there is a difference in thinking that someone supports you and knowing that someone supports you. So it is a huge understanding there. If I tell you I cannot do that right now, or I cannot be there, it's not because I don't want to. I'm still your friend, but this is not, I need to do something else. So I don't have children, but I have two very ill parents that have gone through a lot of ups and downs. The time that I had a full-time job, I was teaching at Broward College, and I had to do everything. And again, just like Major McCook said, I don't know how I did it. But the other very important thing is make time for yourself. You meeting with friends for drinks is not time for yourself. Time for yourself. I probably because, you know, we all talk friendly and we think we get it off our chest, but it's really, you know, something, you know, meditation, mental health is very big. And we think that if I go out for drinks, I'll feel better. No, you won't. And if you have drinks, that's not going to make it any better than that. Meditation, yoga, anything, be out in the air, go swimming, go, I don't know, go for a hike, find a little, I know, don't have a lot of hikes in Everglades, but you know, definitely take time for yourself because it will help you put things in order. It is very difficult to do both. It is also very important to have an employer that's understanding and supportive. And, you know, I listened to a radio show and just the other day it said, one of the biggest things that people say in their 60s and 70s, I wish I had taken more risk. Sometimes we think is the right career, but if we make a list between the do's and don'ts and the pros and cons, it may not be, but we got comfortable enough to say, I don't think I want to make a change. You should, even when you are not looking, you should be looking because, you know, there are certain things that if it's not what you say, is how you say it, that could put you in a different place in your career. There are just so many little things that we tend to disregard along the way because, I'm not there now. I'm not interested. I'll look at it later. And then you kind of like let the pile grow and then you put it in the shredder. There are just a lot of things along the way that we kind of, you tend to forget. So time for yourself, structure, discipline, and understanding employer and good, proper support at home. I know is it too much to ask?
I agree. Professor Archella, you've seen a single mother do it. And now the student or whoever had asked that question, how do you manage the two? Where's that balance of trying to excel in your field, but also knowing that you are a caregiver, be it with parents, family, friends, your child? Yes.
So I wanna do like a different spin on, of course, everything that everybody has said is true. A support network, a good employer. I think Broward College now has actually free childcare, all kinds of stuff. But I wanna point to what Priscilla said, where she says, I feel like I'm always being put in a box. And is that stereotypical sense that as females or as women, we have to be the default caregiver, we have to be nurturing, we have to be the one that stays up late at night and all that. And that happens. That is society, most societies, most Western societies that we live in. However, whether we have support and we have all that or whether we don't, I think a lot of times also we as professionals, we have to fight that. And I know that's hard because it's sometimes it is ingrained and sometimes it is expected and sometimes it's taught to us since we're small, but we have to kind of take a step back and it's like, you know, wait a minute, like Professor Charles says, I'm going to go in the bathtub, you put the kids to bed. But we have to do it because it's so much easier for like, okay, let me do it because I do it better. That's another thing. You know, we have this thing like we do it better than other people. So we take everything on our shoulders. And so I think a little bit of work is on us. Of course, a lot more work is on society, but like I said, you can't really change society. You have to change yourself. So take the time for yourself, like Professor Charles said, but also realize that you're playing into that role, into those expectations. And until you stop and say, this is where my limit goes, now someone else, whether it be my partner, whatever gender is, they also have to take part. Now, if you are a single woman, then you definitely need a support group. But even as a single woman, you have to make sure that you're always it's always I don't want to say fight, but it's a constant struggle. Like, you're not there to take minutes. You're not there to get the donuts and the coffee for the meeting. You're not there to clean up after your colleagues, or even at home. Other people have to step in. A lot of times as children, like I said, I was a middle child, and I have my brother's older. It was assumed that I would clean up and he would go mow the lawn. Why? Like, why? And again, that's cultural. That's, that has been going on for so long. But if we just dismiss it like, oh, that's how it is, then we're just playing a part into it. So at some point in time, it's like, no, I'm going to go mow the lawn, or I'm going to hire someone to mow the lawn. That's why I'm making a bunch of money. And I'm not going to clean up, somebody else is going to clean up, and I'm definitely not going to take the minutes at the meeting, because why should I take the minutes at the meeting? And it's a constant struggle. So there is no easy, but again, with balance, with everything everybody said, but also we are not the default. We don't have to be the default. And I remember a long time ago when I started working there, my previous boss said that my students were not getting what they expected of me. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? They're like, well, you're female, you're Latin, you're supposed to be nice and nurturing. I'm like, I'm not teaching kindergarten. This is a college. So it's like constant. Like, no, I don't have to be nurturing and caregiving. I just have to be sufficient and professional on my job and at anything I do in life.
Absolutely correct. So I want to say, piggybacking on Professor Charles' comment in the chat, or it wasn't direct, it was open, but he said that this has been inspiring and empowering. I do agree. Wonderful meeting everyone on the panel, as well as thank you, Rudy, for having us. I enjoyed this. Actually made notes, and I now have some networks, so if I ever need them in their respective fields, I will reach out. If Major McCook would allow me to have my son date her daughter, because I'm sure she's structured and got life together, we can talk. But with that being said, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for your input.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Before we go, just want to again thank Dr. Bob representing AHCD Pathway. Thank you so much, Professor Charles, representing business. Major McCook representing criminal justice, Institute of Public Safety. Thank you. Professor Achila representing IT and STEM. And thank you, Professor Kleiman representing the arts and AHCD as well. Just a phenomenal panel. I think where I would want to end in part is something that Professor Achila had made mention of, which is, there are times where she's asking her women students to take a leadership role, and at times they're not comfortable doing that. That resonated with me. And the reason why that resonated with me, and really kind of part of the other part of the genesis of this whole Women in Leadership series, is that there have been studies that show that, at some point in time, as young girls are growing up, leadership is at time discouraged, because there is this trope and this stereotype that leadership is for men, which is clearly asinine and an incorrect philosophy. And I think that our society suffers because there's a lack of women leadership at times. And you all were just wonderful examples of why women leadership is so important. Your voice is tremendous, very impactful in your respective fields. And it was really an honor to engage and to listen to such a phenomenal and wonderful panel. This is exactly what I envisioned, and even more so. And that's really a credit to you all as wonderful panelists. I want to thank so many of you who have joined us. Our next Women in Leadership series event will take place March 16th, which is a Wednesday. At 12:30 p.m., we have attorney Ashley Gant, who is not only an attorney, but also the founder of Gant Legacy Law. And so the title of that is Leading in the Courtroom and in the Boardroom. Then March 23rd at 11 a.m., we're going to have a part 2 of Women Leaders Empowering Future Leaders. And that will feature the other pathways here at Broward College. And then March 30th at 12:30 p.m., we're going to have Women Leaders at Broward College. And we got some heavy hitters lined up. So really senior executives at the college who are women and who are leading here are going to be on the panel for that. And so it's going to be phenomenal. I'm really grateful to so many of you friends who have joined, and really appreciate you all, and appreciate also, of course, the support that I received from the Institute of Public Safety, which is a pathway I'm proud to be a part of. So with that being said, you all enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you so much for joining us today. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Marie. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.